Good evening, Executive Chief Thomas Harden with the Houston Police Department. We're going to provide y'all with a preliminary briefing on an officer-involved shooting out here this evening. Yesterday morning, there was a domestic violence report between a husband-wife that involved an assault. Then they share a young child together. The victim of that domestic incident went to go stay with a relative overnight. Earlier today, the suspect in that case went to that relative's residence and kidnapped our complainant and the child at gunpoint, leaving that location with both victims. Our reportee reported the incident to HPD. We sent officers over to the location where the reportee believed the suspect and victims may be. Our officers had a vehicle description of the suspect. They located that suspect vehicle moving near the apartment complex, tried to initiate a traffic stop, and that vehicle fled. During the vehicle fleeing, at two separate times, the suspect reached out the window and fired shots at our officers. Two separate shootings by the suspect during the pursuit. Our officers did a phenomenal job of staying involved in the pursuit until our helicopter got overseen. At that point, our units backed off as much as they could, hoping that the suspect would either pull over or release the hostages. Unfortunately, that did not occur. The suspect eventually entered onto the freeway here, rush hour traffic about 4:30 this evening, where our officers chose to do a pit maneuver to bring the chase to a close. At that time, there was an officer-involved shooting. We have 3 officers that discharged their firearms, striking the suspect. Our officers immediately removed both complainants, both hostages from the vehicle. Then they removed the suspect from the vehicle and applied first aid to the suspect. Unfortunately, the suspect did not make it. He is deceased on scene. Both hostages are safe and unharmed. Before I take questions, I want to commend our officers and our supervisors. It is a tremendous amount of information that they have to take in during a situation like this, a mobile hostage scene where they were shot at 2 separate times. Yet they continued to do what was right and try to save these hostages. And at the end of the day, both hostages were rescued unharmed because of the courageous acts of our officers and our supervisors. And I thank them for that. Do you have any questions? I do not know at this time how many shots were fired. I do, but I'm not going to release it at this time since it's a juvenile. Anybody else?
Was he a baby or an 11-year-old?
We'll call the child a juvenile. That's all. At the time of the incident, we had a name, and that's all we had. I mean, we know who he is now, obviously, because he's on scene, but no, not at the time. That's unconfirmed at this time.
Where's the apartment complex where all started?
Over in the Hillcroft and Clairwood area.
Family, Hispanic.
I do have an address, but I'm not going to release it because it's also the victim's address.
Hispanics?
One more time?
Family, Hispanic?
Yes, yes.
I mean, it must be kind of dangerous for people on the freeway, but luckily nobody got hit.
So, yes, it is dangerous for people on the freeway, but that was what made the supervisors make the decision to bring it to a close, is getting into a high-speed pursuit or a potential high-speed pursuit on the freeway at rush hour with a suspect that has already demonstrated he has a firearm, he's willing to fire at officers, he has a hostage he took at gunpoint, so they decided to terminate the pursuit as fast as possible or before it could happen on the freeway.
Can you kind of describe or explain like the whole pit maneuver, sort of how it kind of transpired, how it went down?
No, I'm not going to go into that. Thank you. Anybody else? I do not know how long the freeway is going to be closed. At the conclusion of the investigation, we'll open it up. But we've brought plenty of units out here for traffic direction to try to provide some alternate routes for people on the freeway. It was several minutes. I didn't get an exact time, but it was over 10 minutes.
No one else was involved or hurt? No one else like bystander?
That's correct. The only hurt individual we know of right now is the suspect.
How would you kind of sum up and describe the whole situation?
How would I sum up and describe the situation? We have a bad actor that took somebody hostage at gunpoint, and we had a high number of police officers willing to go toward danger and stand in the face of danger to save two hostages who they've never met in their life. And they were successful. So I'm very, very proud of them.
What kind of firearm was this?
It was a handgun.
How are the hostages?
I'm sorry?
How are the hostages?
Both hostages are safe and obviously shaken up, but they're unharmed.
I'll take one more and that's it.
Were they married, or it was just a couple, or they were married?
I haven't confirmed that.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
¿No puede decir qué
Sí, más o menos. Buenas tardes. Estamos aquí por el Southwest Freeway, cerca de la Hillcroft. Le quiero agradecer al alcalde John Whitmire que vino aquí. Íbamos para otro sitio cuando esta ofensa ocurrió. Ayer durante el día vino una pareja a reportar que tenían problemas domésticas. La mujer reportó que el esposo o la pareja de ella la estaba abusando. La mujer tuvo el poder de irse con un familiar. El sospechoso hoy la encontró hoy durante el día. Fue a la casa del familiar y en esos momentos con una pistola, con una arma, sacó a la señora y a un niño menor de edad. Cuando nosotros recibimos la llamada hoy, mandamos patrulleros para el área, para el complejo del apartamento. Lo localizamos en minutos. En esos entonces tratamos de hacer una parada con las patrullas, con las luces rojas y azules. La persona, el sospechoso, en esos entonces les disparó a las policías. En dos locales les disparó a las policías. No quiso pararse. Se subió aquí al Southwest Freeway. Nosotros los quitamos del área porque llegó el helicóptero para ayudarnos ojalá que el señor se pare solo, pero no quiso. Lo encajamos sobre el freeway. El señor salió ya después de dispararnos. Rescatamos a la muchacha y al joven, y desafortunadamente el sospechoso recibió heridas de arma de las policías de nosotros y no sobrevivió las heridas. ¿Anything else?
¿Un mensaje para la comunidad?
El mensaje es que el abuso es real a lo que les pasa a las mujeres. Estamos aquí en este mes de domestic abuse, ¿verdad? De abuso doméstico. Nos pasa en esta comunidad. So, si ven algo, por favor lo reporten, como esta persona lo reportó ayer y hoy. So, para nosotros es importante que el mensaje es de que las mujeres tengan la oportunidad y tienen los recursos para salirse de relaciones abusivas, y estamos aquí para servirles. Trágicamente el sospechoso no sobrevivió las heridas, pero la mujer y su hijo están bien, y les quiero agradecer a los oficiales que hacen su trabajo diario con bastante peligro. Hicieron el trabajo hoy sin conocer a las personas, ¿ya? Se arriesgaron ellos para salvar a la mujer y al niño. So, les quiero agradecer a los oficiales que hacen el trabajo duro todos los días. Muchas gracias por tenernos hoy y muchas gracias por reportarlo. Gracias.
Thank you, Chief. Chief,
Yeah. I can't see you, so I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Could you say the domestic violence thing in English?
Sure. So we're at the end of Domestic Violence Month. Domestic violence is real. Domestic violence happens in every part of the city. 1 in 4 of every murder in our community is partners. 72% of the women that get killed statewide, it happens in their homes. So it's very important that this community reports any kind of domestic violence. If you hear it, if you see it, please make sure that you're reporting it so that the police can come in and do our jobs. We can't save these women. This community is fantastic in providing resources. There's resources. We've got the Houston Area Women's Center that's here to provide resources to get women back on their feet, back in a good footing, to make sure that they can move on. What's missing here is the death is terrible for these women that suffer domestic violence, but the loss of the opportunity that these women would have for the rest of their lives. There's young people. Domestic violence is real. It happens in our community every single day. So I'd ask that you make sure that we report it, that we find ways to report it so that we can stop the domestic violence. Not manage it, completely stop it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, I just certainly think about how terrible domestic violence is. And I really want to emphasize, it doesn't matter which community you're in. It doesn't matter your immigration status. If you're a victim of domestic violence, reach out for help to the Women's Center. You do not have to live in a violent environment in any community, any language skill in our community. We're in this together. This was a tragic event. I want to, and the reason I'm standing here shoulder to shoulder with HPD, they use today their training of hours of the pit maneuver and how to deal in a hostage situation. They hope they never have to use it, but today you saw it firsthand. It had as good an outcome as you could have for a mother and her son. And that's why I'm here to support the police, assure Houstonians that yes, we get frustrated about areas of public safety, but let me assure you, we have the finest police department in the country. We're building it. We're recruiting. We've got an outstanding chief. The morale of HPD has never been higher. And I've been around a long time as a partner of HPD. These officers want to do their job. They put their lives in danger. This was a shootout. Commanders, lieutenants made real-time decision what was in the best interest of the hostages and the public, and they made the right decision, and I thank them for that. The chief and I were actually on our way to a town hall meeting to discuss public safety when we got urgent calls to be here, and we see firsthand. I've looked at the video. They did what they're hired to do, what their training supports, and I thank HPD. But back to the public. Family violence needs to be reported. Domestic violence needs to be reported. No one has to live in those conditions. And it doesn't always have to be physical. Sometimes it's verbal. So if you're in an abusive, you're being held captive like these survivors experienced today, reach out for help. And that's all of our responsibility to get them the help they need.
Thank you. Thank you.